Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Next. We have the challenge to follow up an amazing keynote, but we have a great segue. My name is Jose Gomes. I'm the head of retail and CPG here at Google Cloud in the US. And we wanted this session today to really talk about bringing to life all of these innovations in AI and data. A lot of people ask me what the competitive advantage is or how you build competitive advantage through AI, and I often say that the real secret is driving adoption. And so today what we have are two of the best stories for the past 12 months of actually driving adoption of AI in the enterprise. Two companies that are in vastly different places in their journey. And I'll welcome the team to introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. Run of show is we'll do about 30 minutes of some questions between myself and Michelle, and then we'll hand it over to yourselves for some Q&A. So with that, Emily?
Yeah, so I'm Emily Turner, Chief Marketing Officer at Dollar Tree, overseeing both the Family Dollar and Dollar Tree banners.
Well, good morning. I'm Ryan Schreck. I am Senior Director of Store and Associate Technology for Kroger. My teams get to lead the delivery of technology for our 2,400 stores and nearly 500,000 associates.
Amazing. Good morning, everybody. I'm Michelle McGuire Christian. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for ConvergeCONSUMER by Deloitte, which is a platform of AI and ML proprietary, generally software that is purpose-built for all things consumer industry, including retail, CPG, automotive, quick serve. We'll hear a little bit more about it from the team here in a second. But first, I wanted to share a little bit about how Deloitte is using AI and ConvergeCONSUMER in conjunction with Google in order to really accelerate to value for customers, as well as get the most out of your technology by leveraging our industry expertise within software. So ConvergeCONSUMER is intended to be integrated into the front, middle, back office. It helps you know your customer, predict the demand for what products that they want, and then optimize for price, promotion, and placement, and then ultimately provide a personalized marketing experience that moves people down the funnel faster. And some of you may have seen last week, we announced our partnership with Google, where we are going fully cloud native on GCP and leveraging Cortex, Vertex, and Looker in order to help partner with retail customers. So a little bit more about that in a second, but first I thought we'd talk a little bit about how Kroger is leveraging associate productivity inside of ConvergeCONSUMER. So tell us a little bit more about how you leveraged it.
Yeah, so when you think about our opportunity at Kroger, we get to serve 11 million customers every day. And so the work that our associates do to serve those customers really has to be prioritized and prioritized tightly. But what happens when you have a truck that's late for a delivery or an associate that calls in sick, they can't make their shift? And you have to be able to shuffle that prioritization. So we took data that's coming from transportation, time and attendance, inventory, and other places, and we started to help that store reprioritize the most valuable work so that they could uphold that full, fresh, and friendly experience that we're trying to deliver every customer every time.
It's a great consumer example of how the consumer is impacted by data, backed by how associates are optimizing within the store. So we'll get to more of that in a second, but Emily, tell us a little bit about how ConvergeCONSUMER is transforming marketing in the pilot that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a company, Dollar Tree's spoken openly about the transformation journey that we're on. It's early days, but we're making really good progress. We had a pilot last year that we did together that was really about helping us to build that data foundation that has much richer customer insight than we use today. And we were utilizing that alongside the relaunch of our Smart Coupons program. So we don't have a traditional loyalty program that collects all that great first-party data. So we have a coupon program instead. So we were able to use that data, partner with ConvergeCONSUMER to really make it richer, and then personalize the marketing campaign to then find the right shoppers then out in the open web, and then target them with relevant messages to come back. So really successful, and just from that small pilot, we saw a 20% increase in traffic. So we're really happy.
Great, that's a great example.
And Ryan, when you think about, I think the success that you both had, there were two things that really jumped out at me. The first was that you both started with a real clear objective in mind, right? Both organizations in different places, as you sort of talked. Can you talk to the group here about what that objective was when you really started it and how we let the technology fulfill that? And then I'd also like to hear from you about the things that you've learned through the experience. I think often when we get into these sessions, people learn more about perhaps some of the bumps along the way. So Ryan, can you start off, like, what were the big objectives that we were trying to solve at Kroger with this work? And what were the learnings that you went through during that experience?
Yeah, the first objective, we wanted to start off with that nightly stocking activity, because we know that if you get that stocking activity right, the store's in great condition as you open up the next day, and you also have a really good customer experience throughout that day. And so it really had to do with the arrival of that product at the store, how we take it from the back to the front of the house, and ultimately get it onto the shelves for the customers to pick. And in the course of doing this, we learned there's a lot of data that already exists that we knew about, but we weren't using in the same manner that we wanted to now. And so as we started to combine, again, that data from inventory and transportation, we really had to go through a lot of cleansing of that data, but then make it really simple for the associate to see that next best task and activity. And we learned a lot as we went through the process, because the associate had to understand the action and say, that makes sense to me and what I need to do next.
It's really interesting, because it was, I think, the first time we'd seen in retail in this white space where operational solvers were really leveraged to optimize constraints. So, Ryan's given a few examples there, but the fact that you can know that a truck's late means that associates aren't going to unload or wait to unload that truck, or even this idea through the work that Deloitte did of what the value of the next best activity is, and being able to bake that in, I think has been really transformational. Emily, what about from you guys, where you started? Because as you've said, the transformation is very public, and so you started from a different vantage point. I love the way you talk about the opportunity that you have to leapfrog.
Yeah, so it was, actually it's from my prior experience. So I've seen retailers make the mistake when they buy a solution and the business isn't ready for it. And then they quickly become frustrated because they can't leverage the potential, they can't scale in the way they want to. And really it then comes back on, unfortunately, on the partner that they've chosen. So we were really purposeful in starting small. So the pilot isn't actually any comment on Deloitte or on Google. It was more to make sure that we were testing our internal capabilities. So that was really the main learnings from it. So we learned a lot about our data readiness and our access, which wasn't where we needed to be. And then we also learned on our measurement, which if we were to be able to measure the level that we wanted to, with the granularity that we wanted to, we needed to work on those things too.
And can I just ask one follow-up to both of you? Because one of the key successes, and I think in particular at Kroger, Ryan, was that we got 30,000 associates using this platform in under 12 months. And I think that is the biggest sort of achievement out of all of this, because that adoption now is driving the machine learning. How did you all work to actually get, what was the interconnect between yourselves and operations? And I know Deloitte had a huge part of that work, but can you talk to that sort of experience?
Yeah, we had a great collaboration first with our business partners in retail ops, and our technology department and retail ops really worked hand in hand, but we had great collaboration with both Google and Deloitte throughout the process, a number of long nights spent at stores by the teams to go and see. And that's a big part of what we try to do every day, is get out into the stores, see what's happening before you start to create the tech solve. Okay. And so as that collaboration continued to flourish and we started to get feedback from the associates, you're right, Jose, we went, I think, 16 weeks to our first pilot, and it wasn't just a simple pilot, it was a pretty in-depth pilot. And then to an enterprise deployment within 12 months or less. And so the speed for 2,400 stores and 500,000 associates was incredible. And that was a big learning for us, is how fast we continue to push not only the innovation, but most importantly, the adoption by the associates.
It's amazing. And what about you and your marketing team?
Yeah, so for us, actually, one of the biggest learnings is we had to partner with our IT team, actually, because I can go and ask these things. It's really easy. Marketing always has these fancy requirements, but it's our IT team that has to deliver on it. So we worked really closely with our IT team, and I'm fortunate to have a team that's very collaborative and does listen to us and what it is that we want to try and do. And it's just so important, along with working with our internal partners like our IT, but also external partners, because that's what helps us go faster. And then when we do face those problems, which we will face and we continually face, everyone's kind of leaning in to figure out how we can solve them together.
That's a great point. So you mentioned going faster.
Yes.
Google Next is all about what is next. And so when you think about the evolution of how you're going to use data in your organizations, tell me a little bit about what that evolution might look like for your marketing department.
Yeah, so right now we are working together to really expand on that data foundation that we built. So that's the customer segmentation, that's the enrichment of our first-party data. So we have a really good understanding of what our customers are doing, not only in our stores, but what they're doing outside of our stores. So as I mentioned, we don't have the benefit of a loyalty program. Plus, Family Dollar is much more of a fill-in trip than a primary destination, which means we don't necessarily understand fully what a customer is doing outside of our stores. So Converge is really going to help us on that journey. So I'm excited that after we get the foundation in place, there are so many use cases that we'll suddenly be able to deliver on. And personalization is a big one of them. But we have to do this first.
Yeah. And for us, putting Gen AI on what you already have as insights, being able to put that in marketers' hands to make it easy, prompt-based, and then action that is what's next for us. But how about for you guys, the evolution of data?
Yeah, we think about data. We've taken some of the sources I talked about already, and now we're starting to think about what are the next set of data sources we can use? How do we start to think about RFIDs? How do we think about video? And ultimately, what does that mean, again, for the associate trying to serve the customer? So the great part, when you walk into one of our stores, and let's say you go back to a meat counter, and you're looking for a cut of meat, and you don't know exactly what you want, we want that point-in-time experience with the customer to be the only focus of that associate. We don't want them worrying about what inventory or what am I ordering for the next day. So how do we take these new data sets and let that meat counter clerk do the thing that they do best and really help support the customer?
Yeah. And connecting customer data to store data,
Yeah.
super powerful in terms of next best action, next best offer in the case of marketing. So it's good stuff.
Brian, can you talk a little bit about how you're starting to go from that narrow use case in the night shift and then going across departments, going across shifts and that kind of thinking at Kroger?
Yeah, certainly sometimes there's expertise that you have to have within your given department in the store. But we also are looking at how do we make it easier for you to move across departments so that if we need to focus on produce and many of our areas of fresh, which is so important to our customers, then we can move our talented staff, our labor, and our associates over to that department where they need the most help. And so really at first it started in a single department and a single function. And now we're thinking, how do you look across all of those different departments? So maybe you move somebody from stocking, dry goods, cereals, over into produce and perishables.
Which has been a really interesting science challenge, right? Because the interdepartmental needs are quite different. The skill sets of labor is also quite different. And I know that, buy online and pick up in store has been a great area. Emily, how about you? When you think about the expansion of the use cases and the work, how are you all thinking about, building on the success of the first POC and broadening that out?
I think this is going to be the foundation for so much of what we do. So right now, if I talk a little bit about Family Dollar, which is where we're focusing first, we have 8,300 stores. So we are across country, we're in urban, rural, suburban, and then we have different formats on top of that. And then we also serve a very diverse customer base and a lower income customer base. So mass doesn't work for us. So what I'm really excited about is being able to be much more relevant to our customers and do that in a way that really connects with them and makes them see seen and heard. And that's going to be across everything that we do. So that's going to be across our owned and operated channels. That's how we engage via our app, but then into our paid media strategy and actually how we connect with customers beyond as we try and bring new customers in.
Because it's been a real breakthrough, right? I mean, the amount of first-party data that you had versus what ConvergeCONSUMER is now added to that understanding of customers is unbelievable.
It's unreal. So on top of our, our limited but decent first-party data, the richness that we're getting from ConvergeCONSUMER, the insights that we had into where else they're shopping, fuller demographics, their interests, their hobbies, really allows us to be very focused, very precision-orientated, and make our very limited marketing budget work a lot harder for us.
It's a great point. We have over 10,000 sources of data in that data set from Insights IQ. And it's interesting that you mentioned that because traditionally when we think about data, we think about IT and core infrastructure, but now marketing is being asked to lean in. Tell us a little bit about that journey as marketers become more data scientists with some tech as a background.
So I think I'm lucky that I can leverage on my prior experience at dunnhumby. So that was one of the things that was really exciting to me coming to Dollar Tree. And it's something that I'm really advocating for in the team. So I'm probably a little more involved than you'd see the average CMO, probably sometimes a little bit too involved for my team, too involved with the Deloitte team. But it really works to our favor because if I'm asking my marketing team, our company to transform and do new things that we don't necessarily know how to do, I have to lead from the front.
And Ryan, one of the things that I found really inspirational when we started the project was that you would think that labor productivity could lead to reduction in staff. And actually from the outset, the number one thing Kroger told us was that improving the experience of associates was really the key metric, right? Because you wanted to drive retention. Can you talk a little bit about that, how technology is actually enabling you to not only drive productivity, but drive retention and just have a more engaged workforce?
Yeah, I think building off my prior example, when you talk to that clerk that knows cuts of meat, I mean, they've built that expertise over so many years. And so as we think about retention, it's really getting the skills and talents and abilities that they have, that they love doing, making most of their job that function. And so as we looked at this, it's absolutely a way that we can help drive retention, not only for those associates that have been with us for 20 years, that know that work, but also for the new associates that are coming in that we want to stay with us for 20 years. So how do we make their job a whole lot easier as they learn the ropes, as they get up to speed? And we think a lot of it is using the tech to complement what they already know. So that feedback loop is so important as we're out in stores, as we systematically also gather that feedback for, did that activity take the amount of time that we thought it should have? Did we give you the right support and knowledge that you needed? And so we have a great two-way communication channel that's now connecting from our stores back into our ops teams and our division teams, as well into our other areas like supply chain.
And that is the real secret of adoption driving AI, because all of the models that we've built in collaboration with Kroger and Deloitte, they're now feeding off of this. So if an associate takes 30 seconds longer to do a task on average, that's powering all of the insights and the information that we have. Emily, how about you in terms of training, upskilling, recruiting? Like, how have you seen that sort of challenge? You and I were chatting the other day about your ability to attract talent because it's so exciting about the transformation. How are you finding that sort of shift in talent profile at Dollar Tree?
I think it's interesting, and our team are hungry for this transformation, and they've been waiting. So it's a really exciting time for us all. And again, Deloitte team have been great for leaning in and helping us and really taking us on that journey. But yeah, we're also able to attract some great talent, and that's not just within marketing, that's actually across the organization. Because when you go out and you talk about this amazing story about the transformation that you're going to have for a retailer that has over 16,000 stores, that's something that people want to be part of.
Yeah. I'm curious, I'm hearing two sides of a personalization story here, right? I'm hearing from a marketing perspective, this is how we communicate to the customer. From the store perspective, this is the experience we want them to have when they're in the store. Tell me a little bit about what personalization looks like in the future with Gen AI as the promise from a store associate perspective or a marketer perspective.
Yeah, so we today are looking at a prescriptive set of tasks and new things that are happening, dynamic things happening, and how do we reprioritize? And so again, there's a little bit of reactivity to that. So when we look at Gen AI and we talk about the examples I used around RFID and video, now we start to think about how do we become a little bit more proactive and thinking the next best task to focus on the customer, but that task is arrived at through even more data sources, more streams, that is far beyond what we could have individuals determine. But there's a level of confidence in that task as well, because it's happened across 2,400 stores consistently. When this occurs, this is the next thing we do, and therefore this is the outcome we get to serve the customer.
And it's married to the message, right? It's married to the message that they've seen before they come in the store. So tell me a little bit about the promise of Gen AI for you.
So I'm really excited about its ability to help us personalize at scale. So we know that's one of the biggest challenges. It's easy to personalize to an audience of one, but if your audience is 30, 40 million and you still want to have that individualized message, that's where Gen AI is going to come in and really help us do that. The other thing that I'm excited about actually is the efficiencies that it can drive. So we're a lean, mean marketing team, but it's going to help us, some of that kind of basic work that we need to do to get campaigns ready. It can take that heavy lift off us, and we can focus much more on driving our strategy and accelerating our transformation.
What were the biggest challenges? I think I asked it before, but I really want to get to what if you were to start again, knowing what you know, and what would be the things that you would just rethink? Especially with the new technologies that are coming online, what were the pain points that folks could steal and reapply or avoid in terms of the work you've been doing?
I think I'm lucky to be able to leverage a lot of my past experience. And so that's why we chose the approach to kind of go slow to help us go faster, because I know that if we test and we get the fundamentals right, that's going to be the foundation that we need to scale. But I think overall, considering our transformation where we're at, it's the sequencing. So that's the hardest part, actually, is making sure that we set up our transformation in the right order. So we're doing things in the correct orders so that they come online when we need them to, and that we're not catching ourselves when we're ahead of the curve. So I've got personalization. I would love to do that to the level of granularity that I want to today, but I know that I need to be patient, and so I have to wait, which is a hard one. And the IT team often feel that from me, because if they don't give you the guardrails, I'm going to tell them I want everything right now. And it's literal, true story, it's happened. So that's a learning curve for me as well, is just being patient, but knowing that if you do that and you sequence your activities in the right order and you do focus on setting your strong foundation in place, you're going to be much kind of better off when you come to scaling and really trying to reap those benefits in the future.
And Ryan, we had so many challenges just wrangling different data sources that had never been wrangled together, right? From HR systems to logistics to supply chain, and also then the adoption and the feedback, and some pretty, less successful meetings in stores when we were getting the first feedback. What about you? Like, what would be? I know it was super quick and the project was very successful. What were the big learnings? Like, what would you fundamentally do differently, do you think?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we certainly love the speed that we went, and the speed was not necessarily at times all of the data wrangling, which you're right, there was. It was stitching together this data from legacy sources, from in-store versus GCP and other cloud environments, and in our data centers. But at the end of the day, it was also about taking the time to get the feedback. So we had to make sure that we don't go so fast with the MVP solutions that we forget to spend the time in the stores. And that's what I love about the collaboration between the teams, is that we took the time to spend in the middle of the night in the stores to listen firsthand. How did this work for you? Did it make your night easier as you were stocking? And so I love the speed, but you're right, the stitching together the data will continue to become one of the biggest opportunities, I think, for us and many retailers, as you look at all these different disparate data sources, and all of those data sources are changing at the same time too. So that's, I think, the opportunity going ahead as the data landscape gets even more complex.
Definitely, it speaks to probably having to be good stewards of the data across your organization. So tell me a little bit about how you are organizing around operations and data and governance, and how you're working with those different business units to shepherd it into the places that you need it.
Yeah, our teams with our business partners work pretty closely with a number of different areas related to governance and data privacy and so forth, so that we're looking at that data, we're making sure that we have the not only the availability of it, but the right use cases, so that we can ultimately deliver a solution like what we did here for associate productivity.
Yeah, and it has a marketing lens. Being a data steward means something a little different, but what's your approach?
I think for some of it, we're learning as we go, actually. So we've never had to do these things. So we're putting in place new policies as we go on the fly. We're putting in place compliance committees, and we're learning actually a lot of it together, because we have new people coming on board. So it's creating brand new use cases and new roles in the company that we haven't needed before. I think the one thing that we're going to find interesting as we go through this next phase of the journey and the transformation is really changing the internal mindset. Because we're going to go from being a customer-first company that really relies on data to relying on customer data. And that's something that, again, is going to be a new thing that we're all going to have to learn together.
The work you guys have been doing is super visible in the boardroom. How have you been managing upwards the executives, perhaps folks that are even further away from the realities of the technology that needs to be managed? Most of the conversations I'm having is, Gen AI, when will it fix everything in the business tomorrow? So how have you been managing that sort of expectation and the results that you're delivering, and any advice you can provide there?
I mean, I'm lucky. I've got a very supportive executive group. And because we're doing this all together, it's a very transparent process. So we're in there, we have steerco meetings every single week, and we do have to report on our performance and our results. And I think, what's great about the way that it's not marketing pushing this agenda for transformation, it's the whole company. It means we're on that journey. And if something works and it's going to deliver the results, we have that support. So it's a really exciting place for me to be, to get to actually showcase to a lot of our teams that normally wouldn't be involved, like real estate and ops, to see what it is that marketing's doing.
And what about you, Ryan? Now that you've set the benchmark of being able to do so much in so little time, how have you been managing sort of the senior stakeholders at Kroger?
Yeah, I think we have to distill this AI buzzword into really what does it mean in the context of your business. And so for us, it's meant how do we provide, again, the tools that help the associates do what they do really well, service our customers. When we think about full, fresh, and friendly in our stores, what does AI mean to that? And distilling it down to really discrete use cases. And I love the way that we all started at the beginning with, here's our use case. get the store ready, get it set, get the stocking done at night, support those associates, and you're going to have a great start to your day. And your customers are going to be really happy with the condition of the store and the experience they get. So we've been distilling it back down into really discrete use cases, and then starting to then show what the new tech is able to do versus what we may have had access to in the past.
So maybe I ask you about the evolution, but now what are the things you're going to take away from here and go home and try in each of your organizations, be it Gen AI, be it the tech specific? What's literally next for you guys?
Yeah, so I go back to how do we enable the whole store to work together collectively instead of a given department. So certainly our focus around how are we managing inventory? It's always making sure that that full promise to the customer, it needs to ensure that we have the right inventory, the right products available at that point in time. But you also might be a pickup customer.
Yeah.
So how are we looking at the different channels as well? So it's not just the different roles, but the different channels, and all of those are data signals. How do we ingest them and then make it really simple for that associate to do the next best thing?
Yeah. You said you have a backlog. What's next for you guys?
So we do have a backlog. So, next may be a little bit further out for us, but I think, the takeaways that I'll have is, helping to paint the picture of the future for our execs. That's really what this is going to be really valuable for, showing what is going to come and what the future is, but also probably evolving our use cases, because what we need to do when we're going through a transformation is making sure we don't build for now, we build for next. So that's really where this is going to be beneficial for us.
Yeah.
All right, so we're at the sort of 3-minute warning, and I wanted all of us just to close. Outside of necessarily our day jobs, we're obviously in the mix of, I think, the most exciting technological revolution that's impacting retail and consumer. What excites you the most, like in terms of the art of the possible and what's coming next, whether you're applying it or not, just as leaders in this industry, what really excites you? And Michelle, I want you to answer this one as well. Maybe you kick us off.
Yeah, I'm excited about what tech can solve with a purpose. So not just our day jobs, right? How everybody's going to go and apply it to their day job, but how do we use tech, AI to solve the big, hairy problems of the world like climate change and homelessness, and using everybody here is a technologist, our powers for good to change society. And some of the things that I've seen, I'm really bullish on the promise of really changing the world that we live in.
Awesome. Ryan?
Yeah, we often talk about, as you come in and you shop our stores, or you buy online and we deliver, or you pick up, we step back even from that and we look, what are we providing to our customers and to our associates? And it's really that ability to gather around food, and like many of the folks here that are going to enjoy a meal together this afternoon or dinner together this evening, it's being able to connect in person. And so for us, how can we help better set that table for the customers and better enable our associates to enjoy doing it? And we have great tools now. We have data that's going to come together so much differently than it had in the past.
For me, it's all about doing better for our customers. So I'm very customer motivated. Family Dollar, we talk about helping you do more. So this is going to help us do more for our customer. And we do talk about her being she's an underserved, individual who often is struggling and to make ends meet. So this is going to help us be much more relevant to her, much more personalized, and really make that stronger connection and be there for when she needs us.
It's awesome. I think, look, what I've been really excited in these past sort of, let's call it 8 months in terms of this revolution, has been the democratization and access of data science more broadly in companies. And a lot of the things that used to be perhaps foundational and sunk costs that organizations weren't reflecting on the value of them, the platforms, the data, have now become top of mind. And you have boardrooms that are really focused in and interested in solving this. The encouragement that I would give you all in working and speaking with so many customers is to think about the use case, but think of the use case and think of the platform that enables that use case in parallel. I think that the organizations that are most sophisticated right now and that are really thinking about this in a way that around scale and driving scale and adoption are taking a view of the world that enables all of these capabilities from a platform perspective. So think about, if we're going to leverage voice in one part of the company, how do we ensure that that use case really then enables every part of the company to leverage it, whether it's the customer service organization, whether it's the store organization, whether it's the finance organization. The same thing with search, the same thing with chat. So building out platform and product capabilities become really important. I think we've today seen two really great examples of two organizations that are fundamentally in different places, and their ability to start with that objective in mind, that end goal, and then work backwards from technology. I often use the analogy, and many of you probably heard me say this, that we at Google, we provide flour and eggs. We have phenomenal partners like Deloitte that bake cakes that are really the end outcome that we're trying to deliver for associates and customers. Excellent, right? So unfortunately we are at time. Thank you so much for the engagement, for the questions. Plug if you, thank you.